Inside this callback, we receive a response, but we're going to want to get the information out of that. So I get an object called parse. What's that object going to look like? Let me go look at my message again. The outer thing's going to be an object, because you know how to read JSON now, right? That object's going to have a field named message, and it will be a string. And it'll have a field named favenum, and that will be a number. So if I simply come here and say ob.favenum, and it's already a number, if I just say let my ID equal ob.favenum and alert my ID is plus my ID, then I think I'm going to get rid of all this nonsense for now. I think now my clients will just say my ID is and will report the one number that they have got in numerical format of their own IDs. And in fact, instead of storing it in a local variable, let's make a global variable here. Let my ID equal mystery. Mystery means I don't know what my, now that's silly. Let's stay consistent with our types just to not be weird. -1 means I don't know what my ID is. And here, I'm not going to say let because I don't want to make a new variable. I want to use that global one. My ID is the number I got from my JSON stuff, and let's see what it is. And while we're at it, my ID was, now my ID is. Okay. Java main.java, yes. Kill my server. Client number 1 sends a message. My ID was -1. Now my ID is 1. Hey, it worked. Client number 2. I don't know which one is 2. We'll say it's this one. Was -1, now it's 2. Basically, they're getting new IDs. They're storing them in these member variables, so we're making progress. What are we going to do? Now we need to do a little design here. We don't want every time the client talks to the server, it gets a new ID, right? So how are we going to do it? How about when we send a message, sending a message that says, where's our message? Oh yeah, it's whatever's in this text box. We don't really want a form talking to the server. We want it to be pinging the server at regular intervals, maybe once every half second or something like that. Here's what I propose. Let's just design a speaking chat session between server and client. How about if the client says to the server, and we'll write it in JSON just because that makes sense, says my ID, oops, quote, my ID is -1, meaning I don't know. And chat message is nothing. I have nothing to say at this time. And new position, oops, new position is -1, meaning I'm not changing my position at this time. Now, I'm just designing a protocol, and your protocol may look like this, it may look totally different. But suppose the client says this to the server, and suppose I write my server to interpret that to mean I don't know what my ID is. So the server might respond, your ID is 3 or 2, and let's say it's 1. And thanks for the chat message, I'll just ignore that. In fact, that's about all the server needs to say. Does the server need to ever tell the client anything else? Oh, what's up with the other guy? And the other guy's position is at 214. Okay, Well, thereafter, the client will say to the server, hey, my ID is 1. And I don't have a chat message, but my new position is 274. And the server could reply, yes, your ID is 1. And the other guy said, yo, dog, what's up, my main man of the century? And his position is still at 214. And then the client could respond, whatever. Do you see how this is a conversation in the form of JSON? And it's kind of meaningful. And do you see that because when the client says my ID is -1, the server is going to say, oh, you need a new ID, and hand him a new ID. Otherwise, if this client says my ID is something else, the server is just going to say, your ID is what you just told me it was. And they're just going to send the same number back and forth. Or it doesn't have to work that way. You could invent a message system where it starts like this. The client could say, I need, what did he say? How about my ID is -1 and action is I need an ID. And the server could respond, your ID is 2. And then the client could say, my ID is 2. And action is post new chat message, and message is yo dog blah blah blah. And then the server could respond with nothing because it doesn't have to say anything. And then the client could say, my ID is 2, and my action is moved, and my position, new position is 214. And the server could respond with nothing. And the client could then send a message that says, my ID is 2, and my action is tell me what's new. And the server could respond with your other guy's position is 274. Okay. This is the most cumbersome, nasty, formal communication thing you've ever done in your life, right? I mean, we're used to you just speak in English and the other people know what you're saying. This is very articulated, specifically defined communication. And in order to make this work, you're going to have logic written in your code that responds to these things. But this is all you need to do is design some way of talking. I kind of like this one up here because every single packet contains an ID, a chat message, and a position. And so parsing it's going to be super easy. I'm going to get the ID, the chat message, and the position from every single packet. And just when this is -1, that means I need a new ID. And when there's no chat message and no position, that just means tell me what the other guy's position is and stuff like that. But this is a bit redundant because I'm sending a bunch of information I don't really need to send. This one's a little more sparse. I'm having an action field here that says exactly what I want the server to do, and the server is going to have a switch statement that says, if the action is I need an ID, and in fact, instead of strings, it's going to be more efficient if I just change these to enumerations, right? 2 and 3. You know how to do enumerations. Remember the deep copy assignment where we used enumerations? Okay. Or you could just use integers like this. And The server will say, well, if the action is 0, he wants a message. If the action is 1, he's telling, or no, if the action is 0, he wants an ID. If the action is 1, he wants to post a message. If the action is 2, he's trying to tell me where he moved to. If the action is 3, he wants to know where the other guy moved to. See that? You could write it that way. It really doesn't matter how your language is structured. What matters is, does the code in your program process the language appropriately? And if that works, the whole thing should work. Yeah. That's one way. One way of doing it is when you press the arrow key, the only thing that happens is you tell the server, my new position is blah. And then the server could send a message to, it could put a message in the inbox of both clients that their new position has been updated to this. And then when the clients say, hey server, what's up? It will tell them their positions and they'll say, oh, my position's there, how interesting, and moves the picture to there. One advantage of doing that is you know the communication system is working, because if you press your key and your own character moves, then the server knows about it and the other guy knows about it just the same as you do. One disadvantage of that is you feel there's a little more lag, because you as a human, you know when you press that key. And if Mario doesn't move, he waits till the server hears about it and then tells you about it. Feels a little laggy. On the other hand, if the guy over here in Texas presses his arrow key and you're sitting here in Arkansas and you suddenly see the Goomba move, your tendency is to just assume he probably pressed the arrow key just now, even though he really did it a second earlier. And so you're not so bothered by the lag. The truth is, all of the MMOs that you've ever seen are riddled with lag problems. Everybody's pressing their arrow keys, and on their screen they're moving instantaneously, and there's a little bit of interpolation or AI or something going on in the background guessing where everybody else is moving to until they hear from the server where they've really moved to, and then it fudges it by moving them partway in between there, so you can't quite tell what happened. And everybody feels like they're interacting in real time. It's a lie. There's really lag and latency all over the place. And this assignment, we don't care about it. Just come up with some system in which you're going to be sending messages back and forth, and the messages should keep the server updated on where everybody is and keep the clients moving together. So you don't have to do anything. If you use this structure where you have an object with just a bunch of fields followed by values, you could really just use a search method. In fact, the Java string class has a find substring, and it will find where action : is. And if you just search for action : you know that the next thing is obviously the number of the action. So you could just use the substring class to parse this easily. Now, if you want to write more elegant code, you'll take that JSON parser that I gave you in assignment 2, and you'll attach that to your server, and you'll actually parse these into JSON objects, and then you'll write code to navigate the JSON DOM. And I'd rather you do it that way, but then again, we're not doing everything that can be done in this assignment. We're just trying to show that you can make a client-server architecture work. Because you've never written a networking program before, I'm not expecting this to be the greatest project I've ever seen. I'm expecting a Mario, a Goomba, I press an arrow key, it moves, I switch to the other tab, yep, it moved, good job, 100%. That's about the level of quality I expect here. But yeah, in order to pull that off, you're going to have to exchange who I am with the server and what's going on and what I want, and I'll post a message to the chat window and it should appear in the chat window, things like that.